Hockey and Sports Morning Show. Of course, this is the second leg of our double-double. Joining me at this time, he is, of course, Mo Better. How you doing, Mo?
Hey, good morning, Brett. Good morning, everybody out there. We appreciate you guys for joining us on a wonderful Friday.
No, absolutely. So, I figure, why don't we start off with a layup? We'll just knock it out of the park right away. Game 4 of the NBA Finals is tonight, Mo. What are your predictions? Who do you think pulls this one out? Is it 2-2 or do the Thunder go down 3-1?
I'm going to say that this game will determine the series for me. And I really thought last game was going to be a make or break. The Pacers responded so strongly that OKC can't go home down 3-1. Not just from a standpoint of where they would be in the series, but also where they would be mentally as a team, because I think going down 3-1, this is a young core. It could fracture them mentally. So they're going into tonight with all the pressure in the world. I think the Pacers come in tonight, all of a sudden they're the aggressor. They're in control, and they can put this series into a stranglehold on this series. I think tonight is a pick'em game, but if I'm going to lean, I'm going to lean that Oklahoma City wins a close basketball game.
Yeah, no, I think OKC will respond. We've seen them go down, 2-1 before, and they tend to respond pretty nicely in Game 4s. Shea, since I think it's the stat was Shea since joining the Thunder is undefeated in Game 4s. So, also Tyrese Halliburton, his only one loss in a Game 4, and he was injured in that one. So, we have two teams, ironically, and two players who seem to really, truly grasp the importance of a Game 4. Because, that tends to be a swing game in most series. So, it'll definitely be interesting. But, yeah, I think the Thunder win a tight back and forth game.
And I'm going to look at the benches, too. I always think that this series, because the way both teams are constructed, the way the bench production and what you get from their benches, I think greatly impact the series. And Oklahoma City, to me, has the more talented bench. But again, I think the Pacers bench, everybody stars in their role, and they can step their game up. Benjamin Mathurin is the guy that we don't talk about enough. I think Ben Mathurin can get after anybody. He's a unique kind of scorer because he's a two guard, but he's one of those power two guards. Weighs about 220, 230. So he can overpower most defenders, and he's deceptively quick. He has an ability to get to the foul line as well. So I'm going to look at the benches. I'm also going to look at how the Pacers come out defensively, because if they're going to come out with the same aggressive stance that they came out with last game, the impact of that is going to be felt in the third and fourth quarter again.
Yeah, it was like night and day, the difference between Game 2 and Game 3. Because Game 2, it almost felt like the Pacers were playing like, we took one in OKC. We're good. And then they come out all fired up in front of their home crowd and do what they did in Game 3. So
right.
I think the key for the Pacers is kind of just what Jory says in the comment there, is they have to stay aggressive and they just can't get complacent.
Agreed.
So, I'm hoping they do. I'm hoping we get another highly anticipated, just really tightly contested matchup. Hey, good morning, Cottrell. How you doing?
Hey, good morning, Cottrell. What's up, man?
But yeah, no, that'll be fun to watch. Hopefully, we get another TJ McConnell masterclass.
Yeah,
that was absolutely terrific to watch. Mo, you gave me an idea before the show started. Or actually, this is Mo's idea. I'm not taking any credit for this one. Mo, what is one NBA or just sports take that you would die on a hill for? That one take that really you would defend till your dying breath?
I think this is the one that the hill I'm gonna die on. we have a lot of conversations about the GOAT, and everybody's got their own top 10. And for better or worse, I think in that conversation, the one guy who seems to be locked in at his position, and maybe that's a testament to his greatness that he's kind of locked in there, even though some would make the case he could be the GOAT. I think I would die on the hill that Kareem is going to be no worse than the third greatest player of all time for a long time. Like, I don't see anybody moving him out of that slot anytime soon.
You know what? I can't even. I completely agree with that. Like, Kareem, when we're talking dominance, like, we can't really mention dominance without Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And of course, Chad, I'd love to hear some takes. What are some sports takes that you would defend till your absolute dying breath? So, I agree with the Kareem take. I think he's pretty locked in when we're talking an all-time list at number 3, and I don't really think that people are really going to move him out of there anytime soon. So what was it? 6 MVPs, 5 finals, like.
Think about the career, Brett. Like, three MVPs with the Bucks, 2 trips to the finals with the Bucks, a Finals MVP, a championship, and then he becomes a Laker. 3 more MVPs, 5 more titles, and another Finals MVP. Like, he had 2 different careers. You're never going to see another player do that with 2 different franchises. And I know LeBron's been at multiple franchises, but we're talking about the overall bulk and body of work. He didn't have 6 MVPs. He certainly hasn't won the 6 titles. Kareem is very unique in that way, that he was able to do that. And you think about it, look at the decades. We're talking about a guy that's career started in I think 69, and he played all the way through the 80s. That's kind of crazy that he was that talented, that impactful for that long. By the way, it also gives flowers to LeBron and what he's done, because he's up the ante. Kareem, by year 20, I think he was more of like a 4th option on the Lakers, whereas LeBron is in year 22 and he's still 1 or 2 on whatever team he plays for. That's just greatness in a bottle. But yeah, look, I think Kareem is very unique. And maybe because he started in a different era, we almost lose track of how great he was. Too many times when you see Kareem comparisons, what do you see? They always show the picture of the bald-headed old Kareem, right? They never show the young guy with the pork chops at Milwaukee and the big afro. For whatever reason, like, there was never a prime Kareem, but there was a prime Kareem. We just didn't get to see him.
No, absolutely. Cottrell's got some takes in the comments here. We got Maya Moore, GOAT of the WNBA. I can argue that. I think that's a great one. That's a great hill to die on.
I got no problem with that, Cottrell. I think Maya Moore was a beast. I'm with you.
Let's see. LeBron is the GOAT, LOL.
Well, you don't get everything right, but that's cool. But I love you. Nothing but respect. Everybody's got their opinion.
And it's so. I still think it's so weird that people are so like. It's so funny to me when people are talking GOAT debate sometimes, because they'll get like insulted if like LeBron's the second best player of all time, or like, let's say theoretically he's 1, or like Jordan's the second best player of all time. Like, theoretically, like, does it really matter? I feel like once you get to like saying, hey, you're the best player of all time, you're the second best player of all time, like, I also just think that there's not really a higher honor than being one of the 2 greatest players in NBA history. So
yeah, I mean, look, when somebody tells me that Michael Jordan is the second greatest player of all time, we disagree, but I don't lose my mind, because I still think like that you're saying he's the second. There's thousands of guys that have played in the NBA, and you're telling me that this guy, that the last time we saw him at 40, I think in 02-03, and you're saying he's the second greatest to ever do it? I don't think that's an insult at all. I don't. In the same way I feel about if I say I think LeBron's the second greatest to do it. I don't think I'm slapping him in the face or saying he's not special or a transcendent player. I laugh at people that get upset over that. I'm never going to get upset over it. I think it's a strong debate. I feel like we've been having this debate for maybe over 10 or 15 years, and it's okay. It's okay. Those two guys being in that conversation doesn't bother me. And this is going to come weird for me because I'm obviously a lifelong diehard Laker fan. I'm a little thrown off when people tell me that Kobe Bryant should be the GOAT. I don't see that. I don't understand that.
The argument for that is just always, to me, is so weird because it'll just be like, well, who is perfect? Michael, okay. Who's the closest to him? And I'm like, that doesn't, like, you can be the closest thing to Michael Jordan, but that doesn't make you Michael Jordan. And that doesn't make you better than Michael Jordan. Like, that it's always such a weird, what's up, Key? To me, that's always such a weird argument for me when we're talking Kobe. Like, yes, he was the closest thing to Michael, but that doesn't make him Michael, doesn't make him Michael on steroids. like I watched Kobe's career play out, and it wasn't, better than Michael.
Yeah, that's all. Kobe was tremendous, and I have no problem. How many times have you heard someone say he was the closest thing to Jordan? Yeah, I think that's a fair statement to make, but he wasn't Jordan. He wasn't better than Jordan. There was definitely some similarities, but even when you look at how they applied their talents or their skills, they were different. Yes, you can say they both had a killer mentality. I don't disagree with that. But Michael Jordan was a much more efficient player than Kobe Bryant was. He always was. It's not even close. And I've heard people go, "Oh, you're going to use the efficiency argument." Like, that's a good argument to use. That matters. Yeah, it matters. If one guy shoots just off 50% for his career and the other guy shoots around 45%, that's a gap. There's a difference.
No, absolutely. And by the way, Cottrell, on your Tom Brady take, you're absolutely correct. I think I do think that Tom Brady is ranked as the GOAT, but they're definitely like more talented quarterbacks than Tom Brady, even in his era.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Like, it might be a hot take to some, but I think Aaron Rodgers was more talented than Tom Brady. Tom Brady obviously got the job done a lot better than Aaron Rodgers. But when we're talking about arm talent, mobility, and just like actual like play on the field, I think just from a natural talent standpoint, Rodgers is over Brady, and I don't even know if it's all that close. I think he's in a conversation when it comes to natural, like at his peak with like Patrick Mahomes when it comes to just talent on the field. Now, of course, when we start getting into like talks on what they did in the playoffs and whatnot, the conversation changes up. I'll acknowledge that. But yeah, no, I completely agree with that take.
I have no problem with anybody that wants to say Tom Brady's the GOAT. He absolutely is the GOAT. But I think Cottrell is spot on. They're definitely more talented. Look, if we're talking talent, it was the most talented quarterbacks to play of all time. Well, Brady and Montana they're not even in that conversation. You know what I'm saying? They're not in that conversation. If we're talking about pure talent, Patrick Mahomes is a talent. Aaron Rodgers as an arm talent, as everything in terms of his mobility. Like, I would argue he's the most talented quarterback, him and Mahomes, that I've ever seen. Both of them. I would have them 1 and 2. You can flip them if you want. In terms of arm talent and a quick release, I don't think anybody matches up with Dan Marino. There are so many guys that were more naturally or physically gifted than either Brady or Montana, but then it's how you apply that talent in different moments and how clutch you are in certain moments. And Tom Brady is like, if you look up the word clutch, there's Tom Brady, and probably right below Brady, there's Joe Montana. That's how that played out. So I'm with Cottrell on that. That's a great take. And his other take, we were just talking about this. I do wonder how people rank or would rank Kobe had he not passed away from us so early at such a young age. Because I feel like before he passed, the conversation was, is Kobe top 8 or 6 or somewhere in that conversation? And it feels like once he passed it, and there was a reaction, and suddenly we're having these conversations where they're like, well, Kobe's a little bit better than Jordan and LeBron. I've got Kobe 1. I've heard people constantly say this now, and I see what they see, but they're not seeing with clear eyes. It's like they're seeing with beer goggles. Kobe Bryant didn't have a career or wasn't a greater player than either LeBron James, Michael Jordan, or Kareem. He's not supplanting any of those. He's not supplanting Magic Johnson, in my opinion. He's not supplanting Magic Johnson. And you can make a case for him not moving out Tim Duncan as well. I think Tim Duncan, I would die on the hill that Tim Duncan, to this day, is still the most underrated and underappreciated basketball player of all time.
You know what? I'll take it. I always love Timmy praise, and I think there's some truth to that. It's so funny with Timmy because they'd be like, oh well, Kobe in the '08, in the '08 playoffs abused Timmy in the pick and roll. Yeah, that's fine, but at the end of the day, I think what makes Tim Duncan unique is he was just obviously being the cornerstone of a team that just didn't lose or really miss the playoffs his entire career is just insane. And he just came out of the gate strong. I don't think we're really ever going to see a rookie make an all NBA team like Tim Duncan did. And they could, but it would be an absolute, challenge. But it's just wild to think that he came out as an all NBA player leading his team to the playoffs. And he retired, still leading his team to the playoffs, making an all-defense team. Just an absolutely insane longevity, and he was just Mr. Consistency throughout his entire career.
It's weird. I love that you pointed out he steps right into the league as a rookie, as an all-NBA player. And I feel like rookie Tim Duncan in second or third year Tim Duncan was more athletic than Tim Duncan down the road, but the game was still the same. The fundamentals were still the same. I feel like Tim Duncan, he was almost like a honed player, a fully skilled player as a rookie, and he never lowered that standard. He got better, and as he got older, he adjusted to, all right, I'm not going to be the focal point offensively. I'm okay with averaging 16 or 18 a game. I'll still be the defensive linchpin, and a lot of stars can't do that, and Tim Duncan was that kind of guy.
See, does Rodgers win 6 rings with Bill in New England? No. It's funny because probably not. A big part of, the Patriots winning those, championships was Tom Brady taking those pay cuts so they can continue to add to the defense. However, him playing with Bill Belichick, I didn't think does help him a ton because a lot of Aaron Rodgers' game, because, we all know that Aaron Rodgers was kind of more of a safe, quarterback. He wasn't taking as many risks as, your normal gunslinger. So, field positioning and, special teams was a big part of his game. And putting him with a special teams GOAT like Bill Belichick would probably have went a long way with him. And he probably does have a couple more if he plays with Bill, but no, I don't think he gets to all the way up to 7 with like Tom Brady did. Tom Brady is special in that regard.
I think that's fair. I think Aaron Rodgers would have more success. He'd have maybe a couple of more rings, but I'm not going to get crazy and say he would have 7. I don't think he would come close to that. But yes, even just saying a couple of more rings, that would change Aaron Rodgers' career. You're talking about 3-time Super Bowl champion Aaron Rodgers, and let's say he adds a couple of more Super Bowl MVPs. That is a different Aaron Rodgers. That would elevate him higher up in that hierarchy of all-time great quarterbacks. As it stands now, though, you're talking about a great quarterback, a great talent, but when you're talking about the top 5 quarterbacks of all time, I would say he's in there, but he would probably be 5.
Hey, what's going on, Con? How's it going, sir? Great to see you. He says he told us Pacers in 6.
Oh, you know what? Con Man did tell us that. Shout out to the Con Man. I guess Con Man the inside information. He said Pacers in 6. Look, you might be spot on. We'll definitely know a lot more after tonight.
Yeah, no. Like I said, if the Pacers win tonight, I think Pacers in 6 is probably the most realistic outcome of this series. I don't think OKC goes down, in 5, but yeah, I think it's a very realistic ending if Pacers in 6. So Conman could be spot on here.
But he's also right about if the Celtics beat the Knicks. Like if you started that series all over again, would it play out the exact same way? I don't think so. Because you're never going to see. Back-to-back 20-point blown losses. That's kind of hard to do, and they managed that. But if the Celtics were in the Eastern Conference Finals versus the Pacers, do I think the Pacers would have beat the Celtics? No, I don't. I still don't. I don't think they match up well with the Celtics. But again, in the let's just go within the concept of this one season and everything that's happened within these playoffs, this particular Pacers team, with the way they're playing and how they've adjusted series by series, I think they would have gave Boston more than they could handle. They very well could have beat Boston. They're not supposed to be able to beat OKC, and they're up 2-1. So with these Pacers, nothing's off the table.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would say I'm just super glad that I was so happy to see that. I know a lot of people were complaining, like, they wanted the Knicks, to make it to the finals, to face OKC. Why the Pacers before the series started. If it was the Knicks and OKC, I think OKC probably would have won the series by now.
Yeah, it's funny how that works. I think I would feel more comfortable saying that's a short series.
Oh yeah, no, I would be stunned if a series between the Knicks and OKC would have been more than 4 games.
No, I agree.
I think a big part of that is it's not really a knock against the Knicks per se, because I guess I technically am knocking the Knicks, but it's more so about their inability to adapt and change, like the Pacers. Like, the Pacers have made their living just kind of adapting and changing to the situation that they're in, where the Knicks are just, they're going to run a short rotation, they're going to run Brunson, heliocentric offense, and they're going to live or die with the results. And I think that offense, I think the Thunder would have stopped that one, rather easily, and they wouldn't have had to work all that hard to do it.
I agree. I think they're so Brunson centric that OKC would have shut down Brunson. They would have trapped him. They would have attacked him. They would have attacked him similar to the way Indiana's attacking SGA, and they would have said, "We can live with a series if OG and Bridges are going to get 25 or 30 each." And how likely is that to happen? I have a question for you, partner. 5 years from now in the NBA landscape, will we still be able to say that Tim Duncan is the greatest power forward of all time?
I think,
and I'm saying that because I know you're a Bucks fan. You know what Giannis is. I know what Giannis is. I'm just saying, like, if Giannis didn't play any more basketball right now today, I think Tim Duncan still would be the greatest power forward of all time. But I'm saying that Giannis isn't done, and he's not done adding accolades and doing other things. And I don't think he's done maybe getting championships. Could we still say that 5 years from now, though?
I think it's very possible that, Giannis passes Tim Duncan in the next 5 years. I'd probably give it 50-50. I think, he's that good. I have to give him the benefit of the doubt. This is a Giannis that's been racking up all NBA first teams for like 7 years in a row. He's an MVP and DPOI in the same season, something that we've only seen from, Jordan and Hakeem. Like, his peak has been beyond special, and his peak has almost just top, peak Duncan at this point. I think Duncan still has a, very strong peak, and I think he's got longevity over Giannis. I still think, he's got things over Giannis for sure. And I will say that I still think Tim Duncan's over him, but I think it's very possible that Giannis might be able to flip the narrative in the next 5 years. But I'm going to lean towards Tim Duncan in 5 years will still be the GOAT power forward, but I give Giannis a very solid chance to change the narrative.
Now, is that your belief that Duncan will be the GOAT still? Not based on peak, because I think we both agree Giannis's peak has been higher, or is it more based on Giannis might win 1 or 2 more titles, but Tim still got 5? Is that what you're leaning towards, or no?
I'm more thinking that even though hello, welcome. I think that when it comes to Giannis, I obviously still think there's a question as to, because it almost feels like, players are starting to play longer.
Yes.
So I still think it's a fair question to ask, like, how his game just ends up aging once the athleticism starts to wear down on him. I know he's added a mid-range this year, but that has to be consistent for a couple more seasons for me to go, yeah, this is legit. So I need to see how Giannis ages into his, like, non-prime years for me to really kind of gauge, to see if he can maintain that almost Duncan-like efficiency that Duncan had at the end of his career.
I kind of like that. Yeah, you know what? Giannis needs to get that bank shot like Timmy had. Get that little bank shot from about 12 feet away.
I think a lot of people are saying it's Giannis now, and I love Giannis, but at the end of the day, it's just so tough to vote against Timmy, man. I know Giannis is playing now, so as Conman is saying that Giannis is just kind of, more relevant than Timmy now. So I'm just not sure if the argument for Giannis now is based on, what we're seeing, like, statistically, accolades-wise, or is it just he's more relevant now?
It's a great argument. It's a great argument. And I think that the point that Conman brings up, you can use that in almost every other sports argument, that sometimes we could be guilty of everything that's happening right now, or everything that's happened the last 3 seasons versus everything that's happened the last 25 seasons. In any kind of conversation or any kind of debate, when you're talking about all-time great players. Like today, in today's NBA, a guy like Anthony Edwards, who's had a terrific start to his career, but people are already talking about, comparing him to all-time greats. And I'm like, that's so premature. Let's let him have his career first before we start talking about where he ranks all time. Because I feel like there's no doubt Anthony Edwards is going to have a terrific career. But can I look at him and go, Ant's about to win like 3 or 4 titles? I don't know that. He might be terrific for 10 years and never win a title or more.
And you know what's fun? People turn on these players real quick too. We got to remember that. Remember, just like 2 years ago, it was Ja getting like compared to all-time greats, and now he's in like Baron Davis conversations. I'm like, you got to pick one here. Like, you can't just go from like, oh, look at the way he's moving in air. He's the next, MJ to, yeah, he's just like Baron Davis. Like, these are 2 drastically different players. What is he a Hall of Fame trajectory, or is he not? Like,
that's fair. Also, look, I mean, last season we loved SGA. The last 2 seasons in the NBA, everybody loved SGA. Everybody recognized how talented he was. This season, now he's a foul merchant, right? He's a foul merchant, which is weird to me because last year he actually went to the free throw line even more than this year, and they wasn't calling him a foul merchant.
No, and that's absolutely true. It's so funny to me, like, oh, he's a free throw merchant. Like, you do realize that he's actually lower on the list when we're talking about players that average 30 and how many free throws they take.
Right.
Like, he's averaging 8.8. Like, a lot of people's favorite players average more free throws a game, but, were people calling, Kobe a foul merchant when he was averaging 30? Like, no. Were people calling, Allen Iverson a foul merchant when he was averaging 30?
Or Jordan.
Or MJ. Like, I think it's very disingenuous to, call him a foul merchant because at the end of the day, like, he actually gets to the line less than a lot of these other guys when they were averaging 30. Say who has more of an impact in the history of the game? There's an answer. Duncan has 4 chips.
He's got 5. He's actually got 5. He got 5, man.
People say Greek to the Knicks, but is trading Towns only good enough for the No. I said this last night, I'll say it again. I'm going to be like throwing my phone if I wake up or like, yeah, Giannis has been traded for Karl Anthony Towns. I would lose my mind. I'd be pissed.
That's why when I hear the talks about the Knicks, I'm like, I'm Milwaukee Bucks front office. Now, Giannis hasn't come to us to ask for a trade, so we're not planning on trading him. But if we have that conversation and he goes, well, here's the 3 teams I'm interested in. And if one of those teams is the Knicks, I'm still going to go, let's go look at the other 2 teams because I know what the Knicks package is, and that's not enough for me. I'm not going to get excited about Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns. I'm not doing like they're good players, but they're not cornerstone players. They're not building my franchise off of Cat and Bridges.
I think there's only one way the Knicks would actually be in these conversations. They would have to call up the Pelicans and make this a 3-team deal. Granted, they'd have to have something that the Pelicans would also want. But obviously the Pelicans have, the Bucks first from the Drew Holiday trade. So I think that, if they got the Pelicans in the conversation and they somehow managed to, reroute our first back to us, then I think that, there's a conversation to be had. But if you're talking a straight, Milwaukee, New York swap, yeah, absolutely not. I'm not touching Cat. I'm not touching Mikal Bridges.
Right.
Especially since I have to pay Mikal Bridges next year. Like, yeah, you're handing me a hand grenade on a Mikal Bridges max extension. Like, I am absolutely okay with, him staying in New York.
And he's a good player. Look, this isn't bang on Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges is a very good player, but I think he's what we call a complimentary star. Like, Mikal Bridges is not going to be a perennial all-star. He's going to always be a very good starter who can play, who can put up numbers, and he might make a couple of all-NBA defensive teams at some point. But when you're talking about max dollars in the era where we're always worried about the second apron, yeah, I'm not signing up for giving him a max contract.
No, absolutely. Yeah. No. Timmy absolutely was skilled beyond belief. I loved watching Timmy play. I think wasn't that game 6 against even like he could even score, when he was like nearing the end of his career when they called upon it. Was it game 6 against the Heat where he dropped like 39 on them or like 20 or so I think he went insane a couple times against Miami, and a lot of people, I don't know if they were really expecting him to do all that late in his career.
I think Tim Duncan he was just so skilled and consistent. Like, if you're going to age, there's a lot of ways to age. If you're lucky, you can age like a Tim Duncan or a LeBron to where you're aging gracefully and you're still an impactful player. And I know LeBron is on a higher level because he's still giving you 25 or more a game. But I think Tim Duncan played in a system that said he never needed to score 28, 30 points a night. San Antonio, the one thing they did consistently throughout the Duncan era, even when he was in his prime, they made sure to move the ball. They weren't Duncan-centric all the time.
And he does have an all-time carry job. Underrated, but he does have a carry job. I will die on this hill, too, by the way. That Tim Duncan's work in the 2003 playoffs was an all-time carry job. People are like, well, he had Tony Parker. Like, yeah, he wasn't nowhere near ready to contribute. Neither was Manu. Obviously, David Robinson was at the end of his career. Like, he literally retired after the playoffs. He wasn't really the Admiral anymore. Like, I think that there's just a lot of either just players that were way too old or just way too young and inexperienced in that 03 team. But between, Tim Duncan giving them an anchor to, build around, he really went superhuman. He almost had a quadruple double to close out a finals. Like, that is the most insane thing ever.
Was that Tim? Was that the year that they beat the Nets in the finals?
Yep.
Yeah. That Spurs club was not. They didn't have a lot of firepower. What they had was prime Tim Duncan, and they had an aging David Robinson who was no long. That was not even David Robinson. That was like the ghost of David Robinson. He was more of a role player at best. I remember that team. That was a carry job.
Yeah, no, like people try to argue against it. Like, well, they had Tony Parker. I'm like, well, yeah, but did you watch 03 Tony Parker? The funniest thing I ever heard was somebody trying to make the argument like, well, Tony Parker was an all-star level player in 03. I'm like, he wasn't even an all-star level player for the San Antonio Spurs, like in 2003. Like,
you know what, Brett? Do you remember this in the series against the Nets? Tony Parker struggled miserably. You know who actually played well? The guy that came off the bench. You won't remember this name, Speedy Claxton.
Speedy
Claxton.
Speedy.
Speedy played. He played more minutes. He played better. Speedy had a great series versus the Nets. Tony Parker struggled.
Oh, I love. Actually, no, I do remember Speedy Claxton. I always make Speedy Claxton is one of my favorite players to joke about because when I like to talk about players, I would just spot up like right on the 3-point line without taking that step back to shoot a three. Like, Speedy Claxton is one of the first names that comes to mind because that man was always spotting up. But you're just like, just take a step back, Speedy. It won't hurt you.
Yeah, Speedy Claxton. I mean, he had a short career, but he was nice. He was key for the Spurs. If he didn't do his thing in that series, they might have came up short. He was big for them because Tony Parker wasn't ready. And to be fair to Tony Parker, if you've got prime J Kidd hounding you, you're not going to play well.
No, absolutely. And say if I remember correctly, they also had did they have Stephon Jackson on that team? I know they had Bowen. Say that defense was just nasty.
I think Jackson was on that squad. Like that was a tough defensive team. Agreed. And Bruce Bowen, we don't talk about Bruce Bowen a lot. Bruce Bowen is a great defender. He's one of those underrated defenders. He doesn't look it, but Bruce Bowen was one of the most physical wing defenders in NBA history.
Oh, absolutely. He was almost. It's funny in a way. He was almost like the original PJ Tucker, where that man would just sit in the corners and absolutely lace it from that part. But yeah, on defense, he was nasty. Obviously, you can ask the Nets in 03, or even a 37-year-old Bruce Bowen was giving LeBron work in the 07 finals. Granted, that was a major team effort, more than people give him credit to slow down 07 LeBron. But Bruce Bowen did great at slowing him down on his own, and then added Timmy and the rest of the pack, and that was just overwhelming.
Conban was right. Speedy was nasty. Was a nasty free. He was huge heart. I agree 100%. Yeah, Bruce. People forget about Bruce Bowen, but he was nice, and he did the one thing, like you said. He got in the gym and made himself one of those guys that he could hit the three from one spot in those corner threes, and he was money from the corner three.
Say honestly, that's what I'm hoping my guy Andre Jackson Jr. does this summer. Like, listen, just figure out a spot on the court where you can knock down jumpers consistently and go from there. Like, even if you can only hit corner threes, like, I will take it. I will take that.
How about this one? I'm gonna ask you guys a question. Ask the chat the same thing. Sneaky free agents or guys that are going to be available in trades that we're not talking about. Like, what do you think the value is for a player like Lonzo Ball, or what he could bring to it? Because I actually think Lonzo is a terrific 3-and-D guy, but I'm wondering what you think.
I think that Lonzo Ball is probably going to be one of the better point guard options on the market. And I would absolutely, if I were a team, I would be looking to trade for him. and he resigned an extension at like 2 years, $20 million. I think the second year is like a team option, like
right.
an insanely like cost, team friendly deal. I would absolutely be looking to trade for somebody like Lonzo Ball, and I think a team to look out for. Why not the Minnesota Timberwolves? They're a team that I think Mike Conley kind of made it clear this last postseason that he's getting too old to be a starting caliber guard in the NBA anymore. So I think they could be looking for, a new point guard. I've seen, names floated around like a reunion with Tyus Jones, but I think what would be even better for them is I would love to see them get Lonzo Ball because I think Lonzo Ball is just probably going to be the best two-way point guard on the market. He can, give you a 3-and-D point guard that a lot of teams will be craving.
Selfishly, I would want Lonzo Ball back on the Lakers. I'm sure you wouldn't mind him on the Bucks, but if I'm thinking perfect spots, I think you hit the nail on the head. He is a perfect fit for what the Timberwolves need. You put him alongside Ant. That gives you another elite wing defender, but it gives you another natural facilitator that can take the ball out of Ant's hands sometimes. That's what they're missing. Not to mention, Lonzo has made himself into a very good three-point shooter. I love the fit for Minnesota. I think another sneaky place that he could end up going because of the way Brad Stevens think, if they move Drew out, Lonzo Ball is not quite Drew Holiday, but he's pretty close in a lot of ways, and he's a better shooter from three. I'm just saying.
Tyler Hero did make a dumb comment this morning. I think he's just an idiot. Tyler Hero said that he doesn't believe in any history that happened before 1950. I'm like, so you're just an idiot. Okay. But
really? That's what he said?
Yeah, he said it on a stream. He was on a stream with I think streamer like Aiden Ross, and he said that he doesn't believe in any history that, happened before 1950 and thinks they faked the moon landing. I'm like, okay, Hero.
Oh no.
Yeah,
he's one of those. Oh no. Okay. All right.
he just doesn't. Apparently, he just doesn't believe that Pat Riley exists. I guess.
Yeah.
Because that happened before 1945, or he just thinks he spawned in as like a 20-year-old man. Like,
yeah. Well, who's that ghost that walks around the Miami Heat building all the time? Like, really? You know what, Hero? Sometimes the smart thing to do is not say something. It's okay to be quiet. It is.
No, that is kind of a funny thought. Just Hero, like, yeah, that ghost that walks around the building. Sometimes I can hear him saying things. No, Tyler Hero. I know this isn't really sports related, but like I think it's pretty clear that I've seen multiple people, try to take that, say things like that, and it's pretty clear that history did happen before, the 1950s. So
that could be one of those where Pat Riley goes, "Hey, Hero, I need to talk to you real quick. I need to talk to you."
What year was I born? I don't know. Right. 1945. No, you
weren't. Right. I got to get you up out of here. Well, there are already the rumors. What did they say? Ja Morant could be going to the Heat. Maybe that was a no because Pat Riley didn't want to give up Hero in the trade, but maybe the way Hero talks, Pat Riley might be like, you know what? On second thought, you can have Hero.
No, absolutely. I know they try to trade him for Dame, but the Heat are interesting because they keep heard the rumors like, oh, Ja Morant or Kevin Durant could go to Miami. I'm just like, okay, realistically, what does that really do for you? Like, if you're Miami, like I think Ja and KD just make you a slightly more exciting first round exit rather than a 4-game sweep first round exit. Like,
yeah, you read my mind. I think KD and Ja makes the Heat the most entertaining first round exit in NBA history. But nonetheless, there's still a first round exit.
No, absolutely. He might have been con man. Oh, I love
Oh,
having you in the chat
I
comment.
wouldn't.
It's fantastic.
I wouldn't doubt it, comment. I think you're spot on. I think that kind of mindset, that's where he's been.
No, and that's funny to me with some of these locations. They'll be like, "Oh, these players want to win." So yeah, Kevin Durant to Atlanta or Ja to Atlanta. Like what do they win? Like who's winning that? Like the Hawks win because obviously the jersey sales would go crazy, but
For sure.
outside of like off court money making, like on the court, like who wins? Like him going to Atlanta or Miami. I like what I want to see Atlanta just kind of be more patient, I guess, because I think one of the most damaging things you can do as a team is make that big home run trade before you're ready. Like, and I don't think Atlanta's ready. I think they have to keep, building. And I think Trae Young centric offense, works to an extent. I think they had like the 8th most open shots in the league last year. Like, I think you just got to keep going with, kind of finding more two-way players and just get yourself closer to title contention before you make that home run trade if you're Atlanta.
I agree, and they do have some really good young pieces. I like Jalen Johnson. If he can stay healthy, that's the only real question. But I like a lot of the pieces that Atlanta has. I think they make a lot of panic moves. It would be nice if this offseason, instead of looking for a big splash trade, they would do like Cleveland did last year and opt for continuity, bring their young guys back, continue to develop them, and put that out on the floor before you make a panic move.
No, absolutely, and I completely agree. Because it's funny because I think the Hawks also probably aren't in these conversations because I'm hoping they learned from their last mistake when they went to the Eastern Conference Finals and then swung a DeJounte Murray trade and traded multiple firsts. So obviously that didn't work out. And it's weird when we're talking about Trae Young because you bring in another star like a Ja or Kevin Durant, and now we're talking about Trae Young having to play off the ball, which he really hasn't shown much of an interest in doing this far into his career.
And
Kyle
that, and that's not a strength, right? That's not even a strength of his. Like, oh, I like that question that Kyle just put out there. You go ahead, you can do it.
Oh yeah, no, Kyle's just wondering where do you see Ben Simmons going? Honestly, if I were him, stay with the Clippers, man.
Again, I'm gonna start with the word selfishly. Selfishly, I would like him on the Lakers because I think Ben Simmons. People can joke about it, but Ben Simmons has value. He's not going to be a star again. So if you're going to keep comparing him to Ben Simmons with 16, 8, and 8, then you're going to always make a joke of it. But Ben Simmons can still defend multiple positions. Ben Simmons can still snatch a board and push your fast break. He can still facilitate in a role. I'm talking about in a role as a role player. I want Ben Simmons as one of the Lakers' rotation players.
No, that's fair. Honestly, Mo, I don't mind it when you say you want these players to the Lakers because at least you're realistic with it. Like, I could see Alonzo and Ben Simmons being realistic Lakers targets. So, I do respect the fact that you're very realistic with your Lakers targets.
Well, I'm not going to be like KD should come and we're going to give up Austin Reeves and Rui and Felix is going to love that package. Like I'm realistic in our takes. I think Ben Simmons, if he can just get his head on straight to go with the fact that he's not a star anymore, he's still a young man. I think he's 27, 28 years old. He can still be a productive player, but just in a different role. He can we've seen guys that were stars fall for injuries or other reasons and then reinvent themselves into really good role players. And why can't Ben Simmons do the same thing?
Oh yeah, you're we do love realism. Yeah, Jordan's idea of the Knicks turning Mitchell Robinson into Jaren Jackson Jr. somehow was like the greatest thing I heard that day just because it was so funny.
That is a terrible. Who said that? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
It's in the end. It was in the end one Discord because we asked the one guy like, "How would you rebuild the Lakers?" And he's like, "Yeah, I would." And that's when he's like, "Yeah, I'd hire Mike Malone to fix Cat's defense, and I would turn Mitchell Robinson into Jaren Jackson Jr." I'm like, "Oh, baby, oh, buddy."
Yeah, I don't see that. That's not based in reality. That's not based in reality. That's crazy talk. Look, the person that said that, clearly you're a Knicks fan, and you're like, yeah, they're getting a steal. We're giving them Mitchell Robinson. Like, y'all got to stop. Knicks fans, they're good fans, but some of them don't live in reality. And I've heard them say we should trade Cat, start Mitchell Robinson at center. The only problem with that idea is Mitchell Robinson is a foul merchant. He can't not be in foul trouble. If he's your starting center, you're going to need another center because he's always in foul trouble. Not to mention, I think Mitchell Robinson is a situational player because offensively, a lot of times you're going to be playing 4-on-5 because he doesn't have a skill set. He's a great offensive rebounder. He's a good weak side defender, but he doesn't have a post game. And the man can't shoot free throws, so you can't have him in the game late in games.
Yeah, it's one of those things that if your main center is Mitchell Robinson, then you better be ready to sign. You better be ready to sign somebody else to play with him because you can't really count on him most nights for more than like 20 minutes, like 25 minutes max. But half the time, if you stretch his minutes out to 25, it just ends with him fouling out of the game before then anyway. So, and
Jory just hurt my feelings. She said, unfortunately, that was a Lakers fan. That hurts. That hurts.
It's funny to me though because I do think they got to go find a real another center anyway. Obviously, Mitchell Robinson is kind of a flight risk for getting injured. Like he had a pretty healthy-ish season in the second half of the season last year, but if I were them, I'd still go out and get a third big that isn't Precious Achua or Ariel Hockenport or whatever, however you pronounce his name. I'm sorry, I'm really bad with his name, but they have like a fourth string center that has a really hard name to pronounce, and I think you just got to do better, even if it's like a veteran center off your bench.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. He said if the Lakers don't win multiple championships within 5 years, was the trade a bust? I'm assuming you're talking about the Luka trade. Yeah, it is that would be a bust to me. Look, I'm gonna be the one to have a hot, if you want to call it a hot take. I don't think it's a hot take, but I was glad, obviously, that the Mavs handed us Luka, while at the same time, I'm not the biggest Luka fan. Honestly, if I were the Lakers GM, I would trade Luka. I would trade him and get a package for him. I'm gonna die. Here's a hill that I'm gonna die on. I'll die on this hill. If Luka's your best player, you're not gonna win a title. That's the hill. I'll die on that hill. I'll die on that hill.
It's funny because I think the Lakers won that trade if they win a championship or not, Mo, because I think just for the sole purpose of you could turn around tomorrow, Mo, and trade him for like triple what you sent out for him.
Oh, no, I agree, which is why I would turn around tomorrow and trade him.
Yeah, I think Luka, and I think it's funny to me because it's weird because the Lakers just have a higher standard than everybody else when it comes to winning titles. Because I would almost say that I don't think it makes the trade a bust. I think regardless of if they win a title or not, it's a smart trade to make. Because now you have a bridge into that post-LeBron era. But yeah, no. I know some Laker fans will think so. I personally just think it was a smart trade to make. And
well, yeah, if you get the opportunity to get an All-NBA player, by the way, let's not disrespect AD. He's an All-NBA player too. But Luka's an All-NBA player who's 20. I guess he's getting ready to be 27, just coming into his prime. Look, I know whether we win a title or not, you can all Luka in for 28, 8, and 8, and those are impressive numbers. They're great stats. but I'm gonna die on the hill that if he's your best player, you're not gonna win a title. And if I know that now, why should I wait till he's 31, 33 and try to trade him when I can trade him at this age and get the world for him?
And why would you fire a coach who gave you 4 great years and not have a plan already in place coaching wise?
I agree.
I think the Knicks are just being arrogant. They think like, yeah, we're the Knicks. Like all the top coaching candidates want to come to us anyway. So it almost feels like that they're just kind of being arrogant right now. Like at this point, they might just call the rest of the league before actually like talking to Taylor Jenkins and company. It's just such a weird. It's such a weird situation in New York right now. It's so funny to watch.
Is it too late for them to go, you know what? We're bringing Tibbs back.
That was still the funny. Nothing will ever top like my peak. Like I think peak like coach searching was when you look at your phone. They just fired Tibbs. And it's like they're asking to talk to Billy Donovan. Like why? Like well, that is a clear downgrade. Like what has he done for the Bulls? I mean, you go, yeah. We're going to dump Tibbs and.
Well, look, Brad, we can both agree. Billy Donovan, he inherited a really talented Oklahoma City team and did nothing with them. And he went to the Bulls, and then it was about coaching, and it showed you what he really was. What it showed me was he should have stayed in college. That's what it showed me. And look, I agree with Conman. Yeah, Mark Jackson on the surface would be a great hire, Conman, but in my opinion, and I don't know this, I can't prove this. Brett, you might have a different thought on this. For whatever reason, it appears that Mark Jackson, whose name comes up all the time, I feel like he's like being blackballed, like he's never going to be a head coach, right?
I don't think it's going to happen. Obviously, like there's been like when it comes to talking about his Warriors tenure, like. If we start with on the court first, I don't think anything happened on the court that would have stopped him from getting a second job.
Right.
Granted, I do think a Mark Jackson-led team has a ceiling. I think he's a great defensive-minded coach, but the problem with Mark Jackson was he wanted to play a lot of iso ball in a super stagnant offense, which really showed when he was just trying to iso Steph Curry. This Warriors team pretty much was at the bottom of the league in passes per game, which they fire him. They go to, Steve Kerr, and they immediately get unlocked. They're first in passes, and they turn into the Warriors we know and love. So I think that a Mark Jackson-led team does have a ceiling, but I do think to an extent that he is getting blackballed. I think, we're talking about a guy that didn't get along well with others. He seemed like he rubbed a lot of people in the Warriors brass the wrong way.
He threw them out of practice. Like if you want to find a way to get blackballed around the league, let everybody find out that you threw out the GM and team president out of practice. That you threw them out. Like you had to know you were going to get fired at some point. And I'm sure throughout the league, owners and GMs talk. And like I said, it feels like he's being blackballed, and I don't know if it was for those reasons or other reasons, but I'm with you. I don't think Mark Jackson will ever be a head coach in the NBA.
Yeah, I think if you were going to be a head coach by now, it would have happened already. Like, to me, we're at the point in the cycle. I think it would have happened by now. To me, this is like in the NFL when we were in like 2019. They're like, oh, this team's going to bring in Colin Kaepernick to be a quarterback. Like, it's over, dog. And to me, it's a similar situation. Like, oh, the Knicks are going to bring in Mark Jackson, like Stephen A. would say. I'm just like, dog, let it go. It's over, man.
Facts. I got one more hill that I would die on, a sports take that I'll die, that I believe. And I'm sure you'll disagree with me. A lot of people will disagree with me. The best football player that I've ever seen, the best football player. And I don't want to do quarterbacks because you can be the greatest quarterback in football. I don't think that makes you the greatest football player. Those are to me, those are different things. The best football player that I've ever seen, and I would die on this hill, is Walter Payton. He's the best football player I've ever seen.
You know what? It's funny, yeah, because a lot of people like they misinterpret quarterback being the most important like position on the field to the best player. And I don't think important and best are always like really the most similar things, right?
Right.
Yeah, no, I absolutely don't. I don't have an issue with that. I do think that a lot of people just put their best player that they've ever seen as a quarterback just because it's the most important position. While I think there are like we talked about it earlier. I think there are plenty of other players that when you watch them play, you go, yeah, this guy's better than Tom Brady, as a lot of people would say who's the GOAT is.
As
And
a
I think
football player.
yeah, as a football player, and I think they're right. I think there are plenty of players that are better than someone like Tom Brady or a Joe Montana. Like, yeah, absolutely. So I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that take, honestly.
Like somebody asked me who I thought was the greatest defensive players I've ever seen in football. And a lot of people brought up Aaron Donald, who I think is sensational and is worthy of that conversation. But that I've seen over a long stretch, for me, I saw Lawrence Taylor at his peak, and I saw Reggie White at his peak. Those are the two best. And by the way, obviously being a 49ers fan, I saw Ronnie Lott. And I still think Reggie White and Lawrence Taylor are the two best defensive players I've ever seen.
No, absolutely. Yeah, and I agree. I think what Mark Jackson did well for the Warriors is he set a foundation and he built a strong like culture that Steve Kerr kind of took and he elevated it to the next level. So I always hate the notion I think there's too many people that say that Mark Jackson was the reason that Steve Kerr was successful, and
Yeah.
I think Steve Kerr just had the perfect strategy to employ with the Warriors. I think he was just the perfect coach for them. But yeah, I want to give Mark Jackson credit for helping build a culture and a strong defensive identity over there before Kerr came. So I'll give him credit in that regard. I do hate the note. I do hate the notion that a lot of people they'll try to downplay Kerr by saying, "Oh, it was all Mark Jackson."
You know what? I like that. I like that. I think that's fair. I think Mark Jackson, he made the Warriors relevant as a team, and then Steve Kerr unlocked them and took them to another level. You can say those things. Those both can be true. But the idea that you can go, well, Steve Kerr just inherited Mark Jackson's team. They didn't play the same way for Mark Jackson that they did for Steve Kerr. They were good, but Steve Kerr unlocked everybody's full potential. Like, I don't think Mark Jackson envisioned Draymond as a facilitator. I don't think you saw him like that.
No, because he was still playing David Lee over, which David Lee was a fine player. He was an all-star in 2013, but
right.
Yeah, no, and you know what? Saying one of my other favorite, by the way, my least favorite coach. It's so funny. Somebody brought up the old clip, by the way, of we're talking about Shea of they're like, oh, see, Doc Rivers saw the vision, and it was the clip of him saying he knew Shea was going to be a superstar. Mo, I don't know if that comment's like makes Doc look smarter or just makes him look stupider in hindsight. Because to me, I'm like, I saw that clip again, and my first reaction was, then why was Avery Bradley in 2019 getting more minutes a game than Shea if he's a young superstar? And then you can make the argument of in the playoffs he got more minutes than Avery Bradley. Sure, but he was playing less minutes than Landry Shamet. So,
right.
I find, to me, I saw that clip again, and it's the funniest thing ever in hindsight because I'm just sitting here like, if he's a young superstar, why is he only getting like 25 minutes a game behind guys like 2019 Avery Bradley? Like, come on. I always find it funny when some head coaches will be, I knew this guy on my team was a superstar, like, but you were coaching them and you like buried them on your depth chart. Like, what do you mean you knew?
Right. If you knew, he would have played, right? And you wouldn't have had him behind guys who weren't as talented. So you didn't really know. Let's keep it a buck. You didn't really know. And look, Doc's a good coach, but I think that's where I stop at. I think he's a good coach. I don't think he's an all-time great coach. I think he's a really good coach.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think he's good, but obviously when the NBA tries to put him as one of the 15 greatest coaches to ever coach the game, I'm like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. Sorry.
No, I'm not doing that. Look, the funny thing, I'm surprised that they haven't put Ty Lue ahead of Doc Rivers. And I'm not trying to be funny, but if you look at Ty Lue's career, it's pretty much the same as Doc Rivers, except he hasn't lost that many 3-1 leads. But it's pretty much the same. Like Doc has got a lot of mileage out of that one championship in 08. And Ty Lue's got a lot of mileage out of that championship in 16, 15, 16.
Yeah.
But he's coming into like the 10-year mark now, and we're still talking, well, Ty Lue gets the best out. Look, I think Ty Lue's a good coach. I think he's really good. But I honestly don't view him higher than Doc Rivers. You might like him more, and he might be more likable, but I think ultimately when you're judging them off of what their job is and what they do, they're very similar in my eyes.
No, absolutely, and I completely agree, Kyle. Avery Bradley is the GOAT of just standing on the 3-point line, shooting long twos. It's the funniest thing ever. He's another guy where you're watching, you're like, just take a step back, Avery. Just one step.
Avery Bradley used to be one of my favorite players to play on video games because you know how they rate people or they rate their defenses like 90 this. Like I used to put Avery Bradley on like bigger stars and he would lock down. Like Avery Bradley was the guy on video games.
Oh, I also loved Avery Bradley. He was one of my go-to players. It's like, all right, yeah, pick up all these stars full court, and he would always do it to perfection every time.
Yeah, Avery Bradley would rip people for me. Like Avery Bradley was the guy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll say, but Mo, that's all the time we have for today. I'd say most guys 5 years unless Special Shea was developing this game. Yeah, no, and that's completely fair. I never expect like a superstar level. I never expect like a superstar after like, a year or two. But it's still just so weird. But it's just so weird to say that you knew like Doc to say you knew Shea was a superstar, but yet almost bury him behind guys who are less deserving of playing time than him. That part's just weird to me. Like if this guy's a superstar, and he's a superstar in the making, wouldn't you want to give him at least 30 minutes a game? Like really get him out there and continue to develop his skills?
Right. Look, and look, let's keep it a buck. None of us knew that Oklahoma City James Harden was gonna become Houston Rockets James Harden. Like I knew Harden was a bucket, and I knew he was nice, but nobody's gonna lie and go, yo, I know he was that nice, Mo, where he could dominate the league and average 30 and 10. Like I don't think nobody knew James Harden was that nice.
No, I'm saying, yeah, I don't think anybody saw that coming either. Hey, I love Avery Bradley. He was fantastic.
Oh, yeah. I'm giving him credit. He was a really good defender, solid shooter, not a great shooter, but a really good on-ball defender at his peak. I'm just talking about for me when I play video games. Avery Bradley helped me win multiple championships. Like I wouldn't be the 6-time 2K champion if it wasn't for Avery Bradley. Thanks, Avery Bradley. Good looking out.
Hey, listen, learning how to use the different role players is my funnest thing to do in 2K. It's like when I just played somebody last week with the Thunder and he ended up quitting. Listen, Shea only took one shot all game, but Lou Dort, Jalen Williams, not J-Dub, but the backup center Jalen Williams, both had 12 points. Cason Wallace had another 12. I was just pouring it on with all the rotation players. And then the next guy I played with the Bucks. I had 14 with Tyler Smith. So
Isn't there nothing more satisfying than beating somebody and they're breaking their neck to shut down like your big name star? And I'm like, I don't need him to score to beat you.
Oh yeah, no, my best team ever I did that with was easily the 2013 Knicks. Because I was money with Steve Novak and money with J.R. Smith and the rest of that squad. Especially Novak. I'd always run like a small ball lineup with Stat at the 5, Novak at 4 in clutch time. And while like I would struggle at times to get stops, it really just wouldn't matter because I'm getting 3 on the other end or a Stoudemire dunk, and there really wasn't much anybody could do about it.
I was getting ready to say, like, Stat must have just been banging on people left and right.
Oh, absolutely. Say the beauty of that team is if you needed offense, you can run Stat at center lineups. Defense, you just put Tyson in there to lock up the paint for you. Yeah, no, that's all the time we had for today, Mo. Anything you want to say before we get up on out of here?
No, I appreciate the chat. Kyle, Jory, Conman, as always, love you guys. Appreciate the energy and all the comments. Thank you, everybody, for joining us live. Hey, make sure you check out all the great content we have at Wire to Wire Network. Wire to Wire Network, we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm not sure. They probably gave him the option if you wanted a ring or not, honestly. I feel like Avery Bradley was respected enough that the Lakers probably gave him that choice.
I hope he got one.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Definitely would love to see y'all again when we're on here next Friday. Conman, if you ever want to join us for an episode of And One, it's on Thursdays at 8. Would definitely love to have you sometime, man.
For sure. It'd be an honor.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We definitely appreciate you guys, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend.